Moving very gently and slowly, and Friday, and we're nearly there. I think we're past Canberra. So those of you that are back to your mats, just check in with the floor for a moment. Just see what's in your awareness now. Has the floor got softer since Monday? Okay, we've just about got a quorum. Something like that. So come up to sitting with your feet standing. Take your left big toe with your left index finger and see what it's like this afternoon to lift your foot, lower it, flip it from the inside of your arm, outside. Can you just go gently? So what it's like to take your foot behind you. How far back does it go now? Okay, and then swap fingers and feet. See what the other side's like. Just with a sense of curiosity, bearing in mind that what you could do before lunch might be quite different than what you do now. So just notice how it's different. So in and out and round behind. Come back onto your hands and knees. Look at it go. Okay, and this time beginning to slide your left foot forwards in a large arc. And your knee can lift from the floor, so it's not just a pivot, but you're going to slide your foot around towards the front of you. And the language says foot and leg, but the intention is that this is a shape that you're making with your whole self. So how do you do that? Do you think about your foot? Or do you think about the middle of you changing shape to enable your foot to move? Just notice how it gets there. As the leg comes forward, do you feel your weight shift? Does one hand get lighter? You might find that it's easy to lift one hand off the floor. Give me a little wave. And what is your head and your body doing? Where do they go in space? Okay, and change legs. Do Do you make a mirror image of the shape, or do you do something different on this side? You're on your hands and knees and your right foot is coming around in a big circle towards the front. Okay, and you're interested in where your head and your torso go, how you change your shape. Noticing the shift of weight. Does one hand take a little more pressure and one hand take a bit less? Can you feel the place at which one hand could actually lift away from the floor? And then come back to sitting again. Take your left big toe with your left index finger. See what it's like to lift your foot, flip your knee in and outside your arm. Take it back round behind you. Did that little bit of doing something different wake something up that allows you to find a different pathway now? Or to have more of a sense of it's the whole of yourself that's moving? Switch over to your right finger and toe. Flipping in and out, taking your foot around behind. Hook both toes with their respective fingers. Can you lift both feet? Flip your knees in and out. And if you can't, do something that feels fun. It's Friday, for heaven's sake. And guess what? Tomorrow's Moshe's birthday. So happy birthday to Moshe, and just wiggle your feet and your knees and things a bit more freely to celebrate. Can you take one leg behind and the other leg? Yes. Look at that. There's always another way. Okay, let it go, lie down, have a rest. A festive rest. Okay, bouncing back up again. That was a power nap. Hook both toes. Just once or twice flip your knees in and out. Make sure they're moving freely. And this time you're going to explore a new idea of taking both knees to the outside of your left arm. Both knees to the outside of your left arm. Now you might need to kind of step your arms across one at a time. Maybe you can do both together. And can you constrain yourself to just exploring to the left for the moment? So take your legs to the left and back to the middle, and then over to the left. It helps to clench your jaw and stick your tongue out a bit. Okay, and then roll onto your back. And you can just roll onto your back. You can keep hanging onto your toes. And in this position, take your legs to the left. Is this more or less easy? It is like a baby. Okay, so is there something that you've given up doing that makes it easier to swivel both knees over to the left? Or is there something that's slightly different in your shape? And bring yourself back up to sitting again. And this time, instead of hooking your toes, could you hold the outside edges of your feet with your fingers and thumbs all together? See what it's like to take both knees to the left with your hands this way. Okay, you can straighten your legs and take one arm across and then the other. Some of you can just flip them both, that's fine. How would you make it more difficult if it's easy? How could you make it easier if it's not? If it's really difficult, make it even incredibly difficult, because maybe that gives you a clue that there's something that could change. You just want to bring that arm up. Well done. Well, you could make your arms longer. Knowing where you're going does help. So having a bit of an image, if you can't imagine it on yourself, you could glance around and see if you can get a hint from somebody else. Okay, just rest your fingers and your toes for a moment. Okay, so I think most of you got the general gist of taking your legs to the left. We're going to come and explore taking them to the right. So firstly, with your fingers hooked into your toes, both knees sitting up, both knees will go to outside your right elbow. Okay, so now that you know where you're going, do you think of your knees moving or your arms moving, or do you think of yourself changing shape somehow? If you shift where your attention is, does it change the effect or change the ease with which you can do that? You want to end up with both knees on the outside of your right elbow. Yeah. Okay, so you got your fingers hooked into your toes at the moment. Sometimes there's a sequence, makes a difference. Sometimes remembering to breathe helps things stay soft. Roll onto your back and see what it's like doing it there. Sound effects do seem to be increasing. It is a wonderful sight. So one of the things I noticed this morning was that when you actually stopped and visualized something being easy, the quality of your movement changed considerably. So maybe just pause on your back for a moment. Just imagine that you're lying curled up like you probably did when you were a few months old, hanging onto your big toes. Just with that kind of soft, curious interest in the world that a little baby has. Maybe picking up your head to see what's happening, curling into a ball, and just being able to flip your knees over to the right really easily. And when you've got a bit of an easy imaginary image, just come back gently and see if you can follow that pathway. And it doesn't matter if you get there or you don't. Can you do it with the quality of exploration and ease and, dare I say, elegance? You're on your back at the moment. Okay, you're going to change your shape, you're going to curl into a ball and your knees are going to just tip out to the right. And you could giggle and gurgle a little bit because it's just fun. The world will still continue to turn. The sky will stay suspended above us. Let it go. Have a rest. Come up to sitting and grab your feet from over the top with all your fingers together. See if you can find taking your knees to the right with this particular organisation. Yeah, your hands are coming down over the top of your feet. You're holding the outer edges. So this changes what happens in your arms and your wrists. Both knees to the right. And you can do them one at a time. You can get one arm over and then the other arm over. And every time you do it, your hips are becoming freer and freer and looser. Your spine bends more, your head bends more. Your pelvis can roll around. And roll onto your back again. Keep your hands on your feet. No, sorry, instead of going over the top of your feet, you're coming around to the underneath of your feet now with the whole hand grip. And see if you can take your knees to the outside on one side and then onto the other side. Yeah, you're coming around the underside. That's it. Yep. Holding the underside of your feet inside. That'll do. Look at all that swiveling happening. And your weight shifts and your shape changes. And you can let it all go. Just rest. Let all of that curiosity and intention just drain completely away. Come back up to sitting. Have your feet standing in front of you and rest on your hands behind. Find a place to put your feet where there's room for your knees to drop down into the center. See what it's like to let your left knee come to the floor now. And if you need to lift your pelvis away from the floor to do that, that's fine. Certainly one side's going to need to lift. And just explore, where do your feet need to be? Where do your hands need to be? Try the other knee, alternate. And again, can you feel that as one knee comes to the floor, one hand's going to lighten and you'd be able to lift it away from the floor? Okay, and then if you wanted to take both knees into the center to the floor, you might need to lift your pelvis into the air. You can lift it as much as it needs to be. This is just, I wonder what it will do this afternoon. Where will my knees go? Do they go more easily forward? Do they go more easily inwards? Where do you start with your feet to make that as easy as possible? You could do one and then the other. What do you need to do to allow both knees to come towards the floor? So if you're getting a bit stuck, just imagine you can bring your pelvis well off the floor. Your knees certainly know how to come to the floor. And if you can get your knees to the floor, what would have to happen in order to take the weight off your hands? Let it go. Come down on your back. Let everything be long. Now, maybe it's on your bucket list to learn how to bring both knees to the floor and how to sit with your feet behind you. And if it is, I encourage you to stay on that journey. Stay true to your heart's passion. But if it's not, maybe there's something interesting about how did you manage to stay engaged with an impossible task? What was it that allowed you to stay curious, or at least willing to follow instructions? What allowed you to continue whilst making sure that your knees were safe and your hips were safe? And then one more time, come up to sitting, hook your fingers into your toes. Lift your feet away from the floor, one at a time, both together. Flip your knees in and out. Was this impossible a couple of days ago? Looks pretty smooth now. Okay, take your feet one at a time, round behind. How far do they go behind you now? And then when you're ready, take your feet in such a way that you could take them for a walk and just see what effect has all this had on something that you're going to do for the rest of the weekend. And let's potter around. Carry yourself through the world. Does it change the way you move? Does it change the way that you feel? Or does it change the way that you think? Do you notice different things? Take 10 minutes to reorient yourself.